You have no idea what you've already escaped, but you felt the warning. Something tried to hurt you, and the universe pulled you away before you even realized it. And today, you're finally going to understand why. There are things in your life that looked like coincidences, useless delays, meaningless misalignments. But they weren't. They were precise, silent, calculated movements designed to protect you from something you'd never imagined you were about to face. And the most striking part, you felt it in your body, in your intuition, in that subtle discomfort you tried to ignore because it seemed silly. What no one ever told you is that the universe works this way. It removes people before they break you, delays paths before they ruin you, and closes doors you insist on calling opportunities. Here's the controversial part. You're not unlucky. You're protected. And the proof is hidden in everything that didn't happen in your life. Maybe you thought you wasted time, lost someone, missed chances. But if you look honestly, you'll see the invisible thread connecting every escape you only recognized years later. Today, you're going to see that thread for the first time, because understanding this mechanism changes the way you see yourself, your past, and your own destiny. And the truth is simple. There is a pattern, a logic, a deep reason why you were pulled away from certain paths. And once you understand this, once you truly see it, your perception will transform forever. And that's exactly what I'm about to show you now. He always believed that some things just happen until he realized that destiny isn't as random as it looks. There are moments when a silent force guides his steps, even when he doesn't understand the reason. It's as if life gently places a hand on his shoulder and says, "Not this way." This subtle protection shows up through small signs the soul recognizes before the mind does. He only started noticing this when he understood that intuition never speaks by accident. And the more he observed, the more he realized how the universe works behind the scenes. A dance between the unconscious and the inevitable, always preparing the next chapter. He remembers a job he lost for no clear reason, and at the time, it hurt like cruel injustice. But months later, it became obvious that losing it was actually a life-saving disguise. The company collapsed, co-workers broke down emotionally, and he realized how limited his perception had been. That's when he finally understood the gentle logic of divine protection. Sometimes what pulls you off the path is exactly what saves you. The transformation only happens when he chooses to trust the flow of life. As a wise mentor once said, "What doesn't stay was never really yours." And that truth echoes in the soul like a mark of maturity. He began to notice that many of these detours seemed too small to matter, yet they carry deep wisdom. A minor delay, someone who stops calling, a door that should have opened but didn't. All of it shapes destiny in ways he couldn't see before. It's like a chess piece moved by hands he cannot see, but can definitely feel. In these moments, intuition becomes a quiet compass, pulling him away from what would eventually hurt him. And when he chooses to follow that instinct, life becomes lighter, as if he's walking beside a force that wants him to grow. This perception changes everything. Every choice guided by his soul opens hidden doors. He also learned the painful price of ignoring these signs. Once, he insisted on keeping a friendship that drained his energy, even though everything inside him screamed that it was time to let go. The result? Months of emotional exhaustion, sleepless nights, and lost focus. Only when he acknowledged that the universe had tried to warn him several times did he finally understand the importance of protection. If he had listened to his intuition from the start, he would have spared himself so much suffering. Now he teaches others, when the soul speaks, listen. And if you don't know how, start noticing patterns, emotions, and repetitions. That's how inner transformation begins. Over time, he started seeing these hidden movements as a spiritual choreography, guiding him gently away from chaos and toward everything aligned with his essence. He no longer fights destiny, he dances with it, and in that dance, he finds more peace, more clarity, and more strength. Recognizing the universe's protection is like suddenly seeing a lit path in the middle of a dark forest. And as he follows that light, every step takes him closer to something greater, something he still doesn't fully understand, but that's already beginning to reveal itself. He learned that intuition rarely bursts in shouting, it whispers. A small tightness in the chest, a soft discomfort he can't explain but can't ignore either. It seems too subtle to matter, yet strong enough to stir the soul. This silent warning rises from the unconscious long before the rational mind understands what's happening. It's life trying to protect him from something he hasn't seen but already felt. And when he respects that early perception, destiny seems to rearrange itself in his favor, a discreet, powerful force. He remembers a business deal that looked perfect, numbers aligned, deadlines balanced, everything promising. But inside, something tightened, an uneasiness, a strange vibration, like a shadow moving behind the curtain. He ignored it and paid the price. Months later, the project fell apart, revealing hidden flaws. Then it became clear, intuition doesn't need evidence, it only points. And when the soul senses danger, it sends signs that, if heard, become powerful escape routes. He realized that this instinct is like an internal alarm picking up invisible details. A tone of voice, a suspicious pause, promises that sound too perfect. All of it activates a deep emotional radar. He began observing these microsignals with affection, as if decoding secret messages from destiny. When he sensed discomfort, he paused, even for 5 minutes. Often, that small act of waiting was enough to avoid unnecessary pain. Small actions create massive transformations. He also discovered that intuition doesn't warn only about danger, it reveals opportunities. When something is truly meant for him, the soul becomes lighter, the body relaxes, the energy flows. It's like stepping from a dark room into a sunlit one. This shift in perception became his GPS. He began using simple techniques, writing before big decisions, noticing how he felt the next morning, meditating for 3 minutes to clarify the unconscious. These practices strengthened his emotional protection and aligned him more deeply with his destiny. Now he sees this silent warning as one of life's greatest gifts, a spiritual compass guiding him away from people, places, and decisions that could fracture him deeply. And the more he respects that instinct, the clearer his path becomes. Intuition doesn't predict the future. It sees the present more deeply than the eyes do. And that clarity opens space for something even more powerful, something the next movement of life begins to reveal. He realized that pain doesn't always arrive to hurt him. Sometimes it arrives to protect him. Certain breakups, failures, and disappointments work like destiny's push, moving him away from something that would have wounded him far more later. It's like touching a hot pan. It hurts, yes, but it stops him from gripping it and burning himself. The soul knows what it's escaping long before the conscious mind does. And although uncomfortable, these moments bring clear signs of rescue, protection disguised as suffering. He remembers a relationship that ended abruptly. At the time, it cut like an open wound. But months later, he discovered that the person carried destructive patterns that would have drained his peace for years. That harsh ending was a hidden blessing inside the pain. The unconscious sees shadows our eyes ignore. And as hard as it is to accept, some endings are the universe's smartest way of protecting someone, a deep emotional escape revealed only in hindsight. He began seeing these painful moments as teaching storms, heavy rain, strong winds, frightening thunder. But afterward, the air becomes clearer, the roots stronger, the path renewed. This metaphor helped shift his perception of loss. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" he started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That small shift created enormous transformation. Protection isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's intense to keep him from returning to what would have destroyed his soul. He started analyzing his own history and found a pattern. Every time something hurt deeply, something far worse was being avoided. Recognizing this made the signs clearer. He began journaling painful moments and writing what that pain might be trying to protect him from. This practice brought him closer to the unconscious, like opening a private dialogue with his soul. And little by little he realized every pain held a hidden purpose. Today, he sees pain as a paradoxical guardian, hurting at first but healing in the long run. A silent soldier shielding him from things destiny refuses to let destroy him. When something ends abruptly, he no longer asks why, but where is the protection in this? And this simple question unlocks emotional freedom few people ever experience. Because when he understands that even pain works in his favor, something powerful begins to move within him, something that prepares him to notice the signs that come before pain itself. He realized that some of life's biggest problems began in the exact moment he ignored a tiny sign, a slight discomfort, strange energy, unusual silence, things the mind dismissed, but the soul felt strongly. It's fascinating how the unconscious detects danger miles before the mind even suspects it. Intuition tries to warn him, but he closes the door as if it were nothing. Often the protection comes before the fall, but he only sees it afterward. That delayed perception changes the way he sees destiny. He remembers a business partnership that seemed promising. Words aligned, ideas matched, intentions looked genuine. But something felt off. A gesture, a hesitation, an inconsistency. He felt it clearly, like a flashing red signal. He ignored it. Months later, the partnership became chaos, emotional stress, and disappointment. That discomfort he ignored was actually an escape route trying to manifest. The pain that followed only proved what his soul had felt from the beginning. He learned that life always sends signs before storms, always. It's like a silent lightning flash on the horizon, warning of a coming storm. But to see it, he had to slow down. He adopted a simple practice. When something feels wrong, he doesn't decide that day. He waits, he observes. He gives the unconscious room to speak through the subtleties that only appear when the mind slows down. This small habit has saved him from countless emotional disasters. Sometimes escape arrives as a simple, "not today." He noticed that signs show up in relationships too, a strange comment, a displaced look, a lack of reciprocity. These are hidden subtitles the universe places on people. He began trusting these signs, rather than trying to fix what was never meant to align. The more he did this, the lighter his destiny became, because he stopped insisting on what his soul had already rejected. The unconscious doesn't mistake these readings. Now he understands. Every ignored sign returns as a heavier lesson, not out of cruelty, but because what should have been a warning becomes a mandatory class. And when he finally grasps this, he sees warnings as gifts, subtle touches from the universe saying, "Don't go there." And this awareness opens space for something deeper, something linked to detours that look accidental but carry intention. He realized that some detours aren't accidents, they're destiny's interventions. The annoying delay, the cancelled meeting, the message that never arrived, all of them were protection. It's strange to think that a minor inconvenience can change your entire life trajectory, but the unconscious understands these curves long before the mind ever does. Sometimes the soul nudges him away from what would break him, even if he insists on heading straight toward danger. These subtle nudges prevent pains he'll never know existed. Silent, enormous escapes. He remembers the day he missed a flight he thought was crucial. He was furious, felt wronged, delayed, thrown off track. Only afterward, he discovered that the flight had a serious issue and went through frightening moments. That experience shocked him awake. Since then, he views every detour differently. The universe doesn't need to explain its protection. It just acts. And when he trusts it, transformation happens with more grace. He noticed detours also push him away from people who look right on the surface. Friendships that fade, connections that don't progress, opportunities that slip away. Today, he understands that these were also escapes. The unconscious detects intentions his eyes can't yet see, and that early distancing, even when it makes no sense, is pure emotional protection, like an umbrella appearing seconds before the rain. He doesn't know how it appears, but he's grateful. To make this practical, he began tracking these positive accidents. Whenever something went wrong but later proved beneficial, he wrote it down. This simple act expanded his perception. Patterns emerged, synchronicities, connections, hidden logic. It felt like building a puzzle, each piece revealing destiny's precision. The more he observed, the more his soul became sensitive to signs. This practice made him lighter, more conscious, more awake. Now, when something derails, he doesn't panic, he breathes, he observes. He listens to his unconscious like a wise elder living quietly inside him. Many detours he once thought unfair ended up saving his life in ways he will never fully know. And understanding this leads him to something deeper, something that has to do not with detours, but with the things that never even happened. He discovered that silence can be as powerful as the loudest events, the silence of what didn't happen. Sometimes the greatest escape isn't avoiding a fall. It's a situation that simply never comes to life. There's no pain, no conflict, no disaster, just emptiness, and yet that emptiness holds immense protection. The unconscious feels when something dangerous passes close. The soul exhales with relief, even if he can't explain why. This is the most subtle sound of destiny. He remembers a message he almost sent, driven by frustration, ready to confront someone, ready to force a resolution. But something inside him, intuition, or maybe something wiser, told him to wait. Minutes later, the anger faded. Days later, new information came, showing that the conversation would have caused unnecessary pain. That's when he understood. What doesn't happen is often the greatest form of protection, a quiet escape that never becomes a story, but changes everything. He noticed this pattern everywhere, invitations that never confirmed, meetings cancelled last minute, opportunities that stayed stuck. In the past, he would have been annoyed. Now, he observes more calmly. Many of these failures prevented him from entering draining environments, exhausting conflicts, or decisions that would have burdened him heavily. Looking back, he sees how often the universe acted in silence, removing dangerous pieces from the board before he arrived. To strengthen this perception, he created a simple question. What if this is protection? Asking this transforms frustration into clarity. It softens disappointment and opens the possibility of escape. He jokes that destiny has its own sense of humor, stepping in quietly to save him without making a scene. This reflection strengthens the soul and reduces anxiety. Trusting the silence is emotional maturity. Now he understands the sound of what didn't happen as one of the most advanced signs of protection. It isn't loud, dramatic, or obvious, but it's deep. And when he learns to value this silence, he sees how much of his life has been shaped by invisible escapes. It's like walking on a clean road without noticing how many stones were removed before he arrived. And this awareness opens space for something even deeper, a glimpse of futures that never came to be, because the universe erased their shadows before they formed. He realized that destiny protects him in another surprising way, by preventing futures that seemed right but would have destroyed essential parts of him. Strange as it sounds, there are versions of his life that never got the chance to exist, and yet they shaped him. These unrealized futures are invisible mirrors, showing paths he almost walked, but that the unconscious rejected early. Intuition feels these distortions and pulls him back quietly. This silent protection is one of the deepest forms of rescue. He remembers an opportunity that seemed perfect. More money, more recognition, more status. Anyone would have accepted instantly. But internally, something weighed on him. A strange pressure, like signing a contract with future pain. Without understanding why, he declined. Months later, he learned that environment was toxic, draining, emotionally destructive. That irrational no was actually a life-saving escape, a future he almost lived, but didn't. Thankfully, he began noticing how many lives he didn't live because the universe acted first. Relationships that didn't unfold, projects that died early, plans that never aligned. Each one carried signs that his conscious mind missed, but the soul saw. The soul always sees. Destiny isn't only what happens, it's also what doesn't. This realization transforms him deeply because he starts trusting movements that seem against his will. To understand this better, he practiced imagining the version of himself that walked those extinct paths. What would his peace look like? His health, his energy? This exercise opened his awareness profoundly. Visualizing consequences he never lived filled him with silent gratitude. It also strengthened his emotional protection because he saw how intuition and destiny worked together to prevent future suffering. Gratitude grew where regret once stood. Now he sees these unrealized futures as shadows erased before touching his reality. Like someone sweeping dangerous branches off the trail before he takes a step. This understanding brings peace. He no longer mourns what didn't happen. He honors it. Every avoided future created space for a life more aligned, lighter, truer. And now he begins to understand something deeper, something that speaks not through signs, but through the body itself. He noticed that there are moments when the body stops before the mind understands why. It's like the soul pulling an inner handbrake and whispering firmly, "Don't go." This no doesn't come from fear or overthinking. It comes from the unconscious, from a deep reading he can't explain but feels intensely. Intuition becomes an invisible shield, offering protection before impact. And when he ignores this inner warning, life always shows him why he should have listened. One day he was about to accept an invitation that seemed harmless. Nothing looked wrong, everything appeared normal, but his body grew heavy, his breathing tightened. A strange emotional fatigue appeared out of nowhere. He didn't know why. Nothing obvious justified the reaction. He chose to decline. Weeks later, he discovered that the situation was entangled in conflict and emotional tension that would have caused him deep pain. That moment changed everything. When the soul says no, destiny is offering an escape. He began recognizing the body's different signals: sudden headaches, unexpected fatigue, discomfort that appeared only around certain people. All of it was communication. He started treating his body like a wise advisor, one who speaks rarely but accurately. When a place felt draining, he respected it. When a conversation felt heavy before it even started, he stepped back. This didn't make him weak. It made him stronger, more whole, more protected. To practice listening, he created a simple ritual. Whenever he felt internal resistance, he paused for 3 minutes, closed his eyes, breathed slowly, and asked himself, "Is this fear or intuition?" The answer usually came quietly, and he honored it. He realized that the wisest decisions don't come from urgency, but from the space between feeling and action. This ritual strengthened his emotional protection and deepened his connection to his own soul, as if learning a new language. Now he fully trusts these silent no's. They've saved him from conflicts, betrayals, emotional traps, and choices that would have drained him for years. He realized that when the soul says no, destiny is saying, "I'll handle this for you." This awareness unlocks a deep transformation. He doesn't fight the flow anymore. He follows the path that feels alive, light, true. And by trusting this inner movement, he starts noticing something even more subtle, something about the presence and absence of people in his life. He noticed that some people have a strange impact. They feel absent even when they're right in front of him. A silent emptiness, an energy that doesn't connect, doesn't uplift, doesn't resonate with the soul. At first he thought he was exaggerating, reading too much into small things. But intuition doesn't make mistakes with people. The unconscious captures nuances the eyes overlook. A cold smile, a calculated tone, a quiet selfishness. That heaviness is a clear sign of protection. A warning that this presence doesn't belong in his destiny. He remembers someone he insisted on keeping around. Polite, pleasant, seemingly harmless. But every time they met, something inside him tightened. A subtle emotional ache surfaced for no apparent reason. He rationalized it, telling himself he was tired or overreacting. Until the truth surfaced. That person had intentions and behaviors he never would have suspected. Then he understood. His body knew. His soul knew. The escape was already happening long before the truth appeared. The silent perception was the protection. He began to notice how some people drain energy without doing anything directly harmful. They're lukewarm, disconnected, leaving the air dense. This isn't being picky, it's energetic mismatch. When this happens, it's wiser to walk away gently rather than force something that never belonged on his path. He learned to watch the signs, the heavy body, the wandering mind, the intuition tapping on his shoulder. These signals have saved him from invisible pains that could have become storms. To strengthen this awareness, he created a simple method, Observe how he feels after seeing someone. If he returns lighter, that presence is good. If he comes back drained, restless, or mentally foggy, something deserves attention. He applied this to friendships, work relationships, even short interactions. This habit transformed his life. He stopped normalizing discomfort and began treating it as communication, signs from the unconscious, from destiny, from the soul, guiding him away from future pain. Now he recognizes quickly who belongs in his life and who's just passing through. He feels no guilt in stepping back. He feels gratitude for noticing early, because the weight of an absent presence isn't judgment. It's a warning, a reminder that the soul senses intentions before they're revealed. And this realization opens the door to something deeper, to understanding how every presence and absence shapes the path life prepares. He realized that some chapters of life make sense only in hindsight. It's like walking through fog. Each step feels isolated, disconnected, until the wind clears and the entire trail becomes visible. Many times he thought he was lost, guided only by intuition. But destiny knew exactly where it wanted him. The unconscious nudged him away from danger, even when he didn't notice the signs. And when the picture finally comes together, he sees that every escape had purpose. He remembers moments when everything seemed to collapse. Failed projects, closed doors, relationships ending. At the time, the pain felt meaningless. But months later, those very moments placed him on lighter, more aligned paths. It was as if life had quietly reorganized his route, pulling him out of emotional dead ends. Now he understands. Protection isn't always obvious, but it's always precise. And when he sees the transformation behind these movements, his heart softens. He noticed a pattern. After confusion came unexpected opportunity. It was as if the universe needed to empty space before sending something new. This changed how he saw everything. Instead of resisting, he learned to trust. Trust that even when everything looks out of place, an invisible order is forming. The soul always knows the way, even when the mind doubts. To deepen this trust, he developed a habit, writing down situations that made no sense and revisiting them months later. The results amazed him. Every confusion hid a protection, every delay an escape, every pain a preparation. This exercise strengthened his perception and trained his mind to see the spiritual logic behind events. Destiny doesn't reveal the full map, just the next step. And gradually that's enough. Now he walks with more lightness because he knows not everything must make sense right away. Some answers arrive only when he's ready to understand them. He recognizes that every twist, every silence, and every detour shaped his life toward something greater. And when he looks back, he sees that protection was always there, even when it felt like absence, confusion, or loss. And with this clarity, he awakens to something new, something revealed right at the beginning of the journey. At the end of all this, there's a question only you can answer. Are you going to keep treating your inner signs as coincidences, or finally honor what your soul has been trying to show you for years? Because now you know those discomforts, delays, detours, and silences weren't small details in your path. They were messages. They were escapes. They were layers of protection you never noticed. And from this moment on, every time something feels heavy, every time something pulls you away, every time your intuition whispers, you'll see it differently. And that shift in perception can completely change how you choose people, paths, and decisions. Maybe this is the turning point you've been waiting for without realizing it. Now let me ask you sincerely, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you keep repeating patterns that hurt you? Or will you finally allow destiny to guide you with more clarity, more awareness, more respect for what your soul already knows? If this video opened something inside you, if it touched your story, if it made you see your life with new layers, don't let that fade. Go deeper. Walk with me. Learn to interpret these signs with clarity, maturity, and strength. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep learning, because this is just the beginning. With every video, you'll understand more about yourself, the universe, and the destiny unfolding around you, and I promise, you will never see your own story the same way again.